This was a massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind her.
Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This is the goal, to do well on the WTA Tour. I'm super proud of what I was able to accomplish, but the end goal is to win slams.
She has stated that she is incredibly proud of her recent accomplishments on the court. However, her ultimate and unwavering goal is to take home Grand Slam championships. Alex Eala recently shattered historical records, leaving the entire tennis community in absolute awe as they try to process her rapid rise. She initially stepped into the Dubai tournament holding the 47th rank globally. She completely dismantled a top 10 opponent and powered her way straight into the quarterfinals of a Women Tennis Association 1000 event. She ultimately walked away, securing a world ranking that no Filipino tennis star has ever touched before in history. Her biggest rivals are carefully watching these unprecedented numbers, and they are certainly not smiling. Drop a comment below to let us know if you truly believe Alex Eala can smash her way into the top 20 before the French Open begins. We also want to know exactly how deep you expect her to push during the upcoming highly anticipated tournaments at Indian Wells and Miami. We are witnessing a phenomenal new career high for the brilliant tennis star Alex Eala within the Women Tennis Association. Let us begin by analyzing the specific number, because that singular number tells the entire incredible story of her rise. She now officially sits at world number 32. That is her exact position in the official rankings after her spectacular campaign at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships beautifully concluded in the quarterfinals. She arrived in Dubai holding the 47th spot and is boldly leaving as the 32nd best player in the entire world. That represents an unbelievable 15-spot leap from just one single tournament. This massive leap happened even though she did not capture the title, missed the final, and ultimately dropped her final match to the third seed in straight sets. Yet she still boldly claimed world number 32. This establishes a glorious new career high and proudly stands as the absolute highest ranking ever secured by a Filipino tennis athlete in the entire history of the Open era. Please take a moment to let that monumental fact completely sink in before we discuss anything else today. This is far more than just her own personal best performance on the court. It is legitimately the greatest ranking any player from the Philippines has ever conquered in the modern landscape of professional tennis. She has bravely marched into uncharted territory that absolutely no one from her home nation has ever managed to explore before. Amazingly, she accomplished this incredible feat at just 20 years old, even after taking a hard-fought loss in the quarterfinal round. The underlying math explaining this massive jump is truly fascinating to break down. Understanding this math reveals exactly why pushing into the quarterfinals of a Women Tennis Association 1000 event yields such profoundly significant results. These specific 1000-level tournaments sit directly beneath the legendary Grand Slams within the official hierarchy of ranking points. Securing a quarterfinal finish at one of these prestigious events instantly delivers 215 valuable points. Gathering that massive amount of points is genuinely difficult to accomplish at lower-tier events, even if a player competes consistently across multiple different tournaments. Within just one single week in Dubai, Alex Eala harvested points that would normally require months of grinding out steady results at much smaller events. That is exactly how the official ranking system beautifully rewards competitors who boldly step up and execute brilliantly on the absolute biggest stages. Her phenomenal 15-spot jump from 47 to 32 is the direct consequence of adding those 215 points onto her already solid foundation. Breaking into that exact 32nd spot is far more than just a deeply satisfying milestone in her young career. It carries massive operational significance that will completely alter the trajectory of her remaining season. As we look ahead to the year 2026, that rank of 32 serves as the critical seeding threshold at all major Grand Slams. Securing a spot inside that elite top 32 practically guarantees her a highly coveted seeded position at all 4 of the major tournaments. This includes the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the United States Open. In practical terms, earning a seed means that she is completely protected from facing another seeded competitor until at least the third round of any Grand Slam event. The structured tournament draw intentionally shields seeded players from the absolute best challengers throughout the first two opening rounds. This provides crucial time to discover her rhythm and deeply build match sharpness long before the truly elite competition arrives on the court. For Alex Eala, specifically, the upcoming French Open now becomes a massive focal point. The upcoming French Open is undeniably the most urgent conversation surrounding her rapidly evolving career. She tragically dropped her opening round match at Roland Garros back in 2025, and she is highly motivated to completely erase that bitter memory. She deeply desires to wipe that early exit from her official record as swiftly as humanly possible. Arriving in Paris as a properly seeded competitor in 2026 completely transforms the entire structural foundation of her upcoming tournament. This massive shift drastically alters the reality of her path to victory. Instead of risking a brutal early matchup against a powerhouse top 10 seed in the first or second round, she secures a vastly superior starting position. She essentially earns a highly protected and much smoother pathway straight into the third round at the absolute minimum. This is an incredible advantage for a fierce competitor who has already clearly demonstrated she possesses the rare ability to completely dismantle top 10 players. When facing off against the absolute elite tier of women, her current professional track record proudly sits at an incredibly respectable 3 victories and 3 hard-fought losses. Advancing effortlessly into the third round is a huge benefit. Cruising deep into the bracket before facing any genuine championship-caliber resistance offers her an incredibly significant competitive edge. However long before she ever packs her bags for Paris, the grueling American swing takes center stage, and this is exactly where her journey gets truly electrifying. The upcoming narrative surrounding her season gets genuinely exciting right here. The legendary Indian Wells tournament officially kicks off on March 4th, and the highly prestigious Miami Open closely follows shortly after on March 17th. Both of these massive competitions are classified as mandatory Women Tennis Association 1000 events. This essentially means every single elite top-tier player on the planet is strictly required to show up and compete. The extremely valuable ranking points offered at these specific tournaments are easily among the highest you can possibly earn anywhere outside of the legendary Grand Slams. The ultimate champion of each event triumphantly walks away with a staggering 1,000 points. Any competitor skilled enough to become a finalist still securely takes home a massive 650 points. A strong semi-finalist proudly walks away with an incredibly valuable 390 points. Even just surviving until the round of 16 manages to deliver highly impactful rewards. Those finishes provide highly meaningful ranking points that can completely shift a professional career trajectory. Alex Eala, boldly entering both massive tournaments as a properly seeded competitor, changes the entire dynamic. Her spectacularly improved current ranking makes this highly probable, which carries very specific and crucial implications. This matters heavily within a massive tournament draw format that typically features 96 elite players battling for the crown. Securing a coveted seed in a massive 96-player draw automatically earns that specific competitor a highly valuable bye. This bypasses the brutal opening round entirely. While dozens of other athletes are frantically grinding through exhausting opening matches and rapidly getting tired, she gets to safely relax off the court. As those unseeded players are potentially picking up frustrating minor physical issues and draining their stamina, a properly seeded player comfortably starts their campaign in the second round fully rested. They enter the court, having carefully watched their upcoming opposition exhaust themselves working through their opening match. That massive structural advantage beautifully and consistently compounds day after day across an exceptionally long tournament schedule. The underlying points math driving her inevitably toward the global top 20 is the exact mathematical reality making her biggest rivals feel genuinely uncomfortable right now. The current gap separating her newly minted world number 32 spot and the world number 20 rank is tight. That crucial gap sits somewhere between 800 and 1,000 ranking points, which certainly sounds incredibly large on paper. However, within the fast-paced and high-stakes context of the American hard-court swing, it is nowhere near as insurmountable as it appears. If she successfully battles her way into the round of 16 at both Indian Wells and Miami, her ranking will inevitably surge. By achieving that specific result, she immediately adds roughly 240 massive points to her current standing. While that exact amount is not quite enough on its own to violently crack the top 20, it undeniably represents a highly meaningful leap forward. If she somehow manages to successfully replicate anything even remotely close to her spectacular Miami form from 2025, the narrative shifts. Last year, she miraculously reached the tournament semifinals as an unheralded wildcard who was ranked completely outside the top 100 globally. Recreating that brilliant magic would make her current points accumulation genuinely transformative. A brilliant semifinal finish at either one of these massive tournaments instantly delivers an astonishing 390 ranking points. Stringing together two exceptionally deep runs across the massive American swing could completely alter her season. That level of consistency could realistically propel her directly inside the global top 25 long before the exhausting clay season officially begins in April. Another miraculous Cinderella run down in Miami specifically is heavily anticipated by her fans. This is a vibrant tournament she has already proudly demonstrated she absolutely adores competing in. A deep run there could effortlessly push her right to the absolute bleeding edge of the top 20 rankings, well before she ever travels to Paris. Her phenomenal and deeply inspiring history down in Miami is incredibly worth spending extra time analyzing. This past performance is directly relevant to understanding exactly how seriously we must take these massive career projections. Back in 2025, she surprisingly entered the massive Miami Open, relying entirely on a special wildcard invitation. Wildcards are highly unique tournament entries specifically gifted to promising players. These special passes allow athletes to enter an event completely outside the restrictions of their official ranking. This essentially meant her global ranking at the time was unfortunately low enough that she would absolutely not have qualified for the main draw under normal circumstances. She fiercely took that incredibly rare wildcard opportunity and aggressively proceeded to completely dismantle Jelena Ostapenko on the court. She then absolutely stunned Madison Keys, who was proudly sitting as the fifth best player in the entire world at that exact moment. Following those massive victories, she fearlessly faced Iga Swiatek, the reigning and seemingly untouchable world number 1. She miraculously defeated the absolute best player on the planet in dominant straight sets to successfully reach the tournament semifinals. Please take a moment to read that monumental fact back to yourself incredibly slowly. An unheralded wild-card entrant completely destroyed the reigning world number 1 in dominant straight sets at a massive Women Tennis Association 1000 event. That unbelievable and historic tournament run definitively placed Alex Eala directly onto the global tennis map. It elevated her profile in a dramatic way that no amount of grinding through smaller tournaments ever could have accomplished. It brilliantly demonstrated to the entire world that her remarkably lethal left-handed topspin and her highly aggressive baseline patterns are truly elite. Her incredible court coverage is practically unmatched on the professional tour. Her phenomenal movement clearly reflects the countless grueling years she spent deeply immersed in training at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy. This intense preparation flawlessly translates to the absolute highest level under genuine match pressure. The incredibly fast Miami courts perfectly complement her explosive style of play. Furthermore, the massive and incredibly passionate Filipino community consistently fills the stadium stands to create an overwhelmingly supportive atmosphere. They beautifully construct an unbelievable home-away-from-home environment that fuels her competitive fire. All of these powerful elements completely suit her dynamic personality in ways that have now been definitively proven in fierce competition. She is not merely relying on theoretical potential anymore because she has fully validated her immense talent. As she aggressively enters the massive Miami Open in 2026, she arrives with a totally different status. She is absolutely not sneaking into the tournament as an unseeded wildcard ranked well outside the global top 100 this time around. Instead, she proudly strides onto the hard courts as the reigning world number 32. The tremendous structural difference between those two vastly different starting positions is undeniably enormous for her upcoming campaign. She now possesses the massive advantages of proper tournament seeding and critical draw protection. She also carries the phenomenal momentum and surging confidence gained from her brilliant run over in Dubai. This is beautifully combined with the invaluable experience she has relentlessly accumulated from a full year of battling at this elite level. Alex Eala, powerfully returning to Miami in the year 2026, is a categorically different and infinitely more dangerous proposition. The entire tennis world distinctly remembers that when she showed up in 2025, she spectacularly reached the semifinals. The massive and undeniably vibrant Filipino community presence throughout the grueling American swing is absolutely not something to simply dismiss. Analysts should never mistakenly write off this intense crowd support as mere sentimental noise. It acts as a highly legitimate and incredibly potent competitive factor that directly impacts how these high-stakes matches physically unfold. Many prominent American tennis venues strategically located in California and Florida boast significantly large Filipino populations. Whenever Alex Eala bravely steps onto those specific courts, the resulting crowd energy is absolutely electric and deafening. It is never the polite and evenly distributed appreciation you would typically expect from a standard neutral tennis audience. Instead, it is an overwhelmingly passionate and fiercely loyal wave of flag-waving noise that generates monumental support. This incredibly chaotic environment easily rattles veteran opponents who are firmly accustomed to strict European crowd decorum. Elite athletes hailing from the heavily established European contingent of the Women's Tennis Association are frequently caught entirely off guard. The highly skilled French, Czech, Romanian, and Polish players who dominate the tour are rarely prepared for this atmosphere. They are simply not mentally equipped to handle exactly what it sounds like when a completely packed Miami stadium violently erupts. The deafening roar, rallying entirely behind one single player, heavily resembles a chaotic championship basketball crowd rather than a polite tennis match. Alex Eala herself has proudly stated on record that competing fiercely in America honestly never feels like she is playing away from her actual home. The unbelievable energy practically carries her across the finish line. Whenever her legs are screaming in pain and the scoreboard is incredibly tight, that roaring crowd miraculously gifts her a massive surge of adrenaline. Her exhausted opponents simply cannot access that same level of powerful energy from their lonely side of the net. That distinctly massive psychological and deep emotional advantage is incredibly real and statistically undeniable. It is heavily documented across her spectacular American tournament results, and the positive effect exponentially compounds match after match. This incredible phenomenon continuously happens at literally every single venue where the passionate Filipino community proudly turns out in massive numbers. The intensely grueling Dubai quarterfinal battle against Coco Gauff also served as a highly useful measuring stick. It provided an incredibly specific and invaluable data point revealing exactly where Alex Eala currently sits in the global hierarchy. The tough loss perfectly highlighted precisely what critical elements she urgently needs to improve to dominate the tour. That specific high-profile match clearly exposed two highly crucial areas requiring her immediate and undivided attention. She must urgently refine her overall fitness management across an exhausting tournament week and drastically improve her serve effectiveness. Delivering a powerful serve while completely suffocated under extreme pressure is a massive hurdle she must overcome. Thankfully, absolutely neither of these temporary setbacks is an unfixable long-term problem for such a dedicated young athlete. Both of these glaring weaknesses are actually highly manageable areas where laser-focused and incredibly targeted work can make a difference. Putting in the hard hours during the crucial 3 weeks securely nestled between Dubai and Indian Wells can absolutely produce highly measurable results. The noticeable physical conditioning issue heavily affected her performance during that massive match. Alex Eala was visibly looking physically exhausted in the brutal quarterfinal, despite having officially played significantly fewer minutes than Goff across the entire tournament. This stamina drop is completely addressable through making incredibly smart training adjustments and implementing heavily modernized recovery protocols. She also desperately needs the exact kind of intensely focused preparation that her training camp specializes in. The legendary Rafa Nadal Academy is specifically designed and meticulously structured to provide exactly this type of elite physical conditioning. Fixing her sometimes inconsistent serve is admittedly a much longer and deeply complex mechanical project. However, the incredibly positive upward trajectory of her fundamental service motion is already highly visible to careful observers. She is actively attempting to aggressively add more raw pace while simultaneously narrowing the safe margin of error on her primary serve delivery. This aggressive mechanical adjustment will almost certainly increase her overall double faults in the immediate short term as the brand new motion finally settles. It takes genuine time and repetition for a heavily modified professional tennis serve to become perfectly reliable. Ultimately, this bold strategic move completely converts a glaring weakness into a highly reliable neutral rally starter and eventually into an incredibly lethal weapon. Every single legendary player who has ever successfully made a massive mechanical serve improvement has walked this exact same path. Every single legendary player who has successfully attempted a massive mechanical serve improvement has endured a brutal period where their statistics temporarily dipped. They absolutely had to struggle before their performance incredibly improved. Alex Eala and her dedicated coach Juan Bosch are completely aware of this exact issue, and the grueling work is currently happening behind the scenes. What the monumental Dubai campaign demonstrated most powerfully to the world is that her underlying mental infrastructure is undoubtedly already operating at an incredibly elite level. Her spectacular victory featured 6 nerve-wracking match points and complete tiebreak chaos before she finally unleashed a glorious forehand winner straight up the line on her 5th glorious attempt. That specific grueling sequence perfectly showcased a resilient player who absolutely never collapses when the match inevitably gets incredibly complicated. Most average athletes at her remarkably young age would easily fold under that weight. Facing that exact agonizing sequence of constantly missed match points in a brutal quarterfinal at a massive Women Tennis Association 1000 event against a top 10 seed is truly terrifying. Most normal players would inevitably find something deeply flawed in their mechanics that violently shatters under that immense pressure. Instead of crumbling, Alex Eala brilliantly found a spectacular forehand winner and proved her mental resilience. That exceptionally rare level of elite mental resilience is absolutely not something any coach can simply draw up on a whiteboard. It is a deeply ingrained instinct that either genuinely exists inside a fierce competitor or it completely does not. In her incredibly specific and highly unique case, that championship mentality absolutely exists. Furthermore, her recent grueling campaign over in Dubai brilliantly confirmed this rare trait under conditions that were genuinely difficult to survive. The much broader and far more profound significance of her miraculously reaching world number 32 heavily extends well beyond her own individual professional career. It is the absolute highest global ranking ever firmly secured by any Filipino. It is proudly the greatest tennis achievement an athlete from her home nation has captured in the massive open era. This monumental fact beautifully places her directly into a powerful historical context that profoundly transcends mere sports. Professional tennis in the Philippines has tragically existed purely as an unattainable aspiration for multiple long decades without ever producing a single player who could truly dominate. They previously lacked any native athlete who could effectively sustain deeply consistent championship results at the absolute highest professional level. Alex Eala is clearly doing vastly more than merely winning tennis matches on the global tour. She is proudly establishing a highly tangible proof of concept for an entire passionate country and beautifully redefining their deep relationship with the sport at the elite level. It genuinely began when she enthusiastically picked up her very first racket at just 4 years old. She carefully learned the beautiful game under the loving and profoundly wise guidance of her late grandfather. The monumental journey rapidly accelerated when her brave parents made the incredibly difficult decision to send her overseas to properly train. They boldly relocated her to the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca as a highly ambitious teenager, where she seamlessly navigated the brutal transition from mere junior dominance into fierce professional competition. Absolutely none of that grueling early preparation was ever fully guaranteed to ultimately produce a magnificent world number 32. The incredibly elite ranked players currently sitting between number 1 and 31 right now all have their own intense struggles. Each of those legendary athletes heavily carries their very own deeply personal story of massive sacrifice and immense financial investment that beautifully brought them to where they currently reign. Her intensely personal story incredibly produced a genuine miracle. She miraculously achieved a massive global ranking that absolutely nobody from her beautiful home country had ever proudly witnessed before. Her biggest professional rivals, anxiously staring at the newly updated global rankings after Dubai, are severely sweating. They are nervously performing the exact same terrifying mathematical calculations that the rest of us are currently doing. A highly dangerous player who was ranked 47th just 3 short weeks ago is now sitting comfortably at 32nd. A fiercely talented competitor who spectacularly reached the massive Miami Open semifinals as an unseeded wildcard, ranked completely outside the top 100, is now powerfully entering Miami as a highly protected seeded player. She proudly carries an unbelievably massive career-high ranking into the upcoming tournament draw. This is an elite player who has completely demolished 3 top 10 opponents and has miraculously never been blown completely off the court. In literally all 5 of her high-stakes meetings with truly elite powerhouse players, she has fiercely held her ground. She is now eagerly heading straight into the 2 biggest non-Grand Slam events, heavily featured on the entire Women Tennis Association calendar. She arrives packed with massive momentum, soaring confidence, and a highly passionate, roaring crowd eagerly waiting to fiercely support her in both California and Florida. The sudden rising panic among her biggest rivals is completely understandable. The undeniable mathematical numbers completely and flawlessly justify all of their deepest competitive fears. The highly anticipated Indian Wells tournament officially kicks off on March 4th, and her unbelievable story is absolutely not slowing down anytime soon. Reaching world number 32 represents an incredibly glorious new career high. It is proudly the absolute highest global ranking any Filipino tennis star has ever miraculously achieved on the incredibly demanding professional tour. Alex Eala proudly walked entirely out of the massive Dubai tournament, having unfortunately lost her very last hard-fought match, yet she still miraculously made undeniable history. Anyway, the highly anticipated Indian Wells tournament is roughly 3 short weeks away. The entire global tennis world is absolutely paying incredibly close attention to her next big move. Please generously hit that like button rapidly, subscribe to the channel, and kindly drop all of your deepest thoughts down in the comments below before we see you next time.